Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And I'm your host, Ronald Bethea. And today's date is June the 2nd of 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have, I'm trying to get the audio and video up for our show today. Ted, I'm waiting for you.
I thought we were scheduled for 11 o'clock.
Uh, I'm here with you here on the platform of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very exciting show for you today. With quite a bit of information. We're that we prepared for the show for today. We're waiting on our guest, Mr. Ted Trabue, who is a member of the DC Public Service Commission, and someone I've known for quite some time, and I have been able to to So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try to close some of these windows here so we'll be able to get our program up and running here, and hopefully we won't have as much feedback uh, through the platform today. All right, let me see here what we're working with. This is quite concerning to me because I don't want to cut the show off. Um, well, ladies and gentlemen, let me try and work through this problem because I'm going to have to try and resolve it quickly. Let me go to the live stream. It's on. Uh, all right, we have our guest coming on board with us, Mr. Ted Trabue. And with that being said, we're going to uh, hello, Ted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, Ron. How you doing this morning? Good.
And
Ron, can you hear me?
yes, I can. Let
Okay.
me.
Ron, I just lost your audio. I think you muted yourself. I,
Can you hear me now,
I
Ted?
can hear you now. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because we got you. Well, that's what I was trying to do was to unmute myself because I've got two windows open here. Uh, uh, Several windows here. Yeah, and I'm trying to find out which one is giving me the feedback. So let me do
Okay.
this. I'm gonna hit that one. Hello, Ted.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, we can get the show on the road now because I don't have that feedback. I got the window closed there. I hope my live stream is still on. Renew participant to watch on live stream. Okay, so let me hit this and see if I can get back to our live stream segment here because I'm trying to live stream this. All right, live stream. So, welcome, Ted. It's been quite a minute since I've tried to get you on this platform, and it's been a struggle. But I finally, after all this time, was able to welcome you to the airways of Solar Now in the future with its economic impact on Black America. Uh, Ted, this is quite a topic, subject matter, and you as a member of our Public Service Commission here in Washington, D.C., I've known you for quite some time, and I've had a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for you because of the work that you've done in the community here in Washington, D.C. Not only serving now as on the Public Service Commission here in Washington, D.C., but you were one of the pioneers with the DC Sustainable Utility here in Washington, D.C. I think you were the original director for that entity starting here in Washington, D.C.
I
and
was, yes.
y'all have done some serious heavy lifting since
Mhm.
2011 in working with the NFL Hall of Fame great Daryl Green and Mark Davis of WTC Solar. So I know I'm taking you back some years now because
You
y'all
are, you are.
because
Let me talk about that and reminisce for just a half a minute if you'd let me.
yeah, please do.
You know, our first full year of operation was 2012. And one of the mandates of the DC Sustainable Energy Utility was to help with the deployment of solar in the District of Columbia. Another mandate we had was to help our low income residents reduce their energy bills. And so we saw this. Another mandate we had was to create jobs here in the District of Columbia for district residents and create economic opportunities for district contractors. And so we saw solar moving into the District of Columbia, particularly in the income qualified community, is an excellent opportunity to check all four of those boxes: help people reduce their electric bills, help create jobs in the District of Columbia, help create opportunities for contractors. And so we launched the solar program in 2012. But before we launched it, we took a look at a map. We said, okay, where was solar at that time deployed in the city? And as you might imagine, in some of our wealthier wards, Ward 3, Ward 4, um, Ward 6, there were thousands of solar developments on rooftops for single family homes in the city. But we looked at Ward 7 and 8 first, and there were less than 24 units between those two wards combined. Now, you know, Ward 7 and 8 is a quarter of the city. That's a quarter of the city. But you had thousands of units on the western side of the city, and you had less than 24 or 25 solar units in wards 7 and 8. And so we started our work at Ward
Ted,
7
I
and
don't
8.
want to stop you in the middle of your flow, brother, but you just said something that's very important in your conversation. When you said that you had a third of the nation's population
A
in
quarter, yeah.
wards 8 and 7. So
Mhm.
people need to understand what that really means. With our last census data, I think our nation's capital population is close to what it is, around 700,000 people.
Yeah, yeah, 680 to 700,000.
700,000 people. So we're talking about a third of 700,000 people in two wards, 7 and 8,
Well, and
east
you add Ward 5 to that. There were
and
less than a dozen units in Ward 5
and,
as well. Yeah,
and Ward 5.
yeah. So
And
you're talking
even
about
though Ward
really a
5
12.
is not east, all totally east of the river,
Mhm.
we're talking about a large segment of our communities of color. That's where our communities are. So I just want to be
Right.
clear
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
our listening audience that what you were doing, y'all were bringing an opportunity to our residents in those wards who have no other way could they have been able to afford these systems, because we're talking 20, 30,000 almost back
So
then.
yeah.
So
So you're talking maybe not 30, but larger systems would have been 30,000. We were installing systems that were more modest in size, but they would have ranged between 12 to 15,000 per household. And you know, I'm really extremely proud of the fact that beyond the hundreds of jobs that we created in over a decade of doing this work, and the opportunities to take a WDC Solar or Daryl Green, who was working with used to play for the Washington Commanders and his company, and many others, bring them out of really being, you know, very small shops to now being national shops. But we took between those two, the wards 5, 7, and 8, and then we expanded the work citywide. Very proud to say there are more solar systems in Ward 7 than there are in Ward 3 at this point.
Well, with that being
And that took a decade. That did not happen overnight. All right, it took a decade. But the expansion of solar and reaching our community, then we added community solar to that as well. So we now have over 10,000 households, over 10,000 households who are connected either directly to solar on their roof or connected to a subscription through community solar. So they're saving a significant amount of money on their energy bill.
Well, I got to stop you there, Ted, because see, it's a question, and it's something called affordability, and that's the 3,000-pound gorilla. He's bigger than King Kong, and this is not.
I'm gonna intercept you for half a second to say this. I want to say two things. These solar systems did not cost any of the residents a dime. All right, these were all installed absolutely free of charge to the residents
I understand.
And the subscriptions as well. And let's talk about the magnitude of the reach we were able to have.
Well,
if we talk about our income qualified community, those who are qualified for energy assistance, so you've got about 22,000 households that are qualified for energy assistance. We've taken almost half of those at this point. Almost half. That's a significant. I would challenge any other state to say they have taken half of their LAHEAP qualified residents and been able to cut their energy bills directly, not through assistance from LAHEAP, but through the assistance of the installation of solar. I mean,
now,
I think that's progress. That's what equity looks like to me.
Yeah, well, it does that way for me also. And I was a big advocate and component of the program that y'all brought forth. And I know you saw me at many of those city council meetings and testimonies advocating for the Biden and Harris administration to, in fact, adopt this Solar for All program and take it nationally. Guess what, listening audience? That's what happened. This young man here and their group made history because they started the Solar for All pilot program, which was started through the pilot here in Washington, D.C., and $7 billion was put in the Solar for All program, which was a part of the Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which had $27 billion in that initiative. Now, fast forward, we are having some serious issues with an organization that I wanted you to weigh in on today called the PJM. And I want to set the table with our listening audience so they will know who the PJM, what the PJM, and how they impact on us on a daily basis. Well, the PJM interconnections is just referred to as the PJM. It's an organization responsible for operating electric grid supply power for 67 million people who live in 13 states and our nation's capital. Its territory expands from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C., and parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and North Carolina. PJM is designated by Federal Regulatory Commission as a regional transmission organization, one of a number of RTOs charged with ensuring a safe and reliable supply. Each ROTC is independent from others. Now, I've got to put a pin in this because I got some problems with this statement myself. And I'm reading this, and I'm looking at the...
You want me to break it down into English?
Yeah, I'm going to make it real plain because that's what we do on this platform here, Solar Now in the Future. I want our people to understand that we're talking about an organization that has a total of 1,131 members. Now, you have voting members who are 513, ex-official voting members 15, affiliate members 533, and associate members 68, and special members 2. Now that total comes out to that number I just gave, 1,131. Now, to make this very, very clear, there are 3 core priorities of the PJM. Number one, keeping the lights on. This is the specifically refers to grid operations, monitoring transmission, electricity, and balancing the supply of electricity with demand. Administering and buying and selling the electricity through wholesale electricity markets. The PJM procedures electricity through both a daily spot market and a capacity market that secures commitments to deliver electricity as a future 3 years from now. So we're talking about we're paying for energy costs that they're projecting that will be 3 years from now. Now, the problem that
we're not we will pay for energy. We're not paying for them currently, but we will be. Yes,
yeah, we will pay. But what I'm looking
so
at,
we have an auction every year that takes place
every
well, each state has a different date for their auction. In the District
yeah.
of Columbia, our auction takes place in late December, early. It's a
Okay.
two-phased auction in December and January.
Now,
But yes.
third, assessing and planning the future needs for the electric grid, looking at a 5-year planning window. Now, all that's fine. Who has say in the PJM? Now, that's very important when PJM is governed by its bylaws. PJM's corporate structure works through an intersection of the PJM Board of Managers, members of organizations, and stakeholders. Now, let me put a pin in that.
Okay.
The stakeholders, when we begin to look at the membership, 90% of those members are vested in the fossil fuel industry. Would I be correct in that statement, Ted?
90%. Probably. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I
It's a
wouldn't
very
argue
high
with you about
number.
that. Right. Yeah, I'll take your number on that. Yeah.
It's a
I mean,
very high number.
if you look at the fuel mix from the fuels that we receive from PJM on a regular basis, on average, let me pull it out here. So you've got about half of the fuel that generates electricity. We're talking about the generation of electricity here. About half of it is coming from natural gas. Another quarter of it or so is coming from coal. Another good bit of it is maybe 20% from coal, 20% from nuclear. Oil makes up a fraction, maybe 5%. So yeah, your fossil fuels of oil, coal, and natural gas are clearly,
I'm looking at the.
are clearly 70% of the mix.
Yeah, I'm
You know,
looking at.
you've got wind in there, you've got hydro, you've got solar and
Yeah,
nuclear,
well, but when you
waste, a
even
little bit of everything.
yeah. But when we begin to look at the PJM and we begin to look at their responsibilities in this process, they in fact the renewable portfolio standard legislation for all 13 states and the District of Columbia, I think y'all set the caps for the renewable energy in your renewable portfolio standard on how much renewable energy must be coming from renewable energy sources in some point in the future. And that's very important because we know those goals and ambitions were by the Biden-Harris administration. He put $1.3 trillion in investment tax credits and grants and incentives for the build out of renewable energy projects. And what is very, very important for our listening audience to understand is that the more green electrons that go on the grid,
Mhm.
because they're much more cost effective in producing and cheaper. It helps bring down our electricity cost capacity pass throughs. Now, when we
Now,
begin to
and in addition to that, Ron, I would say, and you're absolutely right there. But in addition to that, clearly you have the reduction of the amount of fossil fuel we're burning, oil, natural gas, coal, because you're now getting your energy from renewables like wind and solar. And so, yet less, you also have collateral environmental benefits as
oh
well as
no,
your economic benefits that you're mentioning.
and health
Benefits,
benefits,
right, right. Yeah,
because
your
I
environmental
try to
health
make
benefits. Yeah.
and that's and property benefits. The NAACP did a study some years ago through their legal defense group, looking at the number of coal-powered and gas-powered plants that were built within a 90% of them were built within a miles radius from communities of color nationwide. When you begin to look at the map and the demographics of how these things are planned. Now, what is important to understand is that these companies that are members of the PJM, they're the ones that are responsible for making making these decisions, because in fact the PJM does not own the grid. The PJM has a PJM does not own utilities, nor does it
Right, right.
direct them to do what? PJM does not own transmission lines or electricity, but the utilities who joined the PJM members as granted permission to use these high voltage distance transmission lines and to equip, manage, and flow electricity across the grid. Looking for a deeper dive? Now, people can go.
So Ron, so let's talk about our local situation here, okay?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I
So
wanted to
you so
tie
you
it.
get
I wanted to tie this back into how it's impacting our local situation because of the auctions. And historic date was yesterday for two purposes. I have on the one shirt was the Oklahoma massacre. The other historic thing that happened on June 1st of 2026 was the highest capacity pass-throughs in the history of the PJM to the 67 million ratepayers who are in the PJM region, because the payments have shot from 2020
probably about
20 20
$28.
20 yeah, from $28.92. I think that was for fiscal year 2023-2024, which was the $28.92 represented the annual capacity daily auction cost at that time, which broke down to 2.2 billion, and it jumped to $269.92, which was then the highest rate hike, which jumped it from 2.2 billion up to, in capacity cost pass-throughs to ratepayers, to 14.7 billion. 14.7 billion, 7 times higher from the previous year. But there was a cap which was negotiated through the lawsuit that was brought by Governor Shapiro and the 13 state governors and the District of Columbia's officials, that capped it at $329. We have already maxed that cap out in all 13 states and the District of Columbia, and though that max cap now is $16 billion,
Okay.
which has been.
Ron, I'm not disputing what you're saying. It's absolutely true. I just want to put some context in here for your
Yeah,
listeners so they can understand,
that's why I don't want
what
you.
we're
That's why
talking
I
about.
got to
Okay.
here. I want you to
Yeah.
put the
Right.
context in it
Yeah.
and what it
So give
means.
me so indulge me for a minute here. Okay. So what are we really talking about here? Let's talk about electricity starting off in your home. Around you're in an office somewhere, you're in your studio. I'm sitting in my office. We've got lights on in here, right? You got some lights on in there. You got these microphones and everything. All of this is powered by electricity,
Oh,
right?
no question.
Okay. All right. So where is this electricity coming from? All right. Where is it coming from? So let's level set here. A lot of our residents, folks been around the city a long time, like remember the power plant that was out on Benning Road. Okay.
34th Benning Road.
Right.
If you check vital statistics, you have the highest cancer rates there and impacts going back to the environmental aspect of
So
it.
as a part of uh, an agreement that was reached back in 1999 here in the District of Columbia, Pepco agreed to shut that power plant down. That power plant really didn't even run every day. It was a peaker plant. It's called a peaker plant. It really only ran on really hot days when we needed some excess capacity in the city. So that plant ran between 10 and 15 days a year. There was another plant that was close to the District of Columbia, not actually in DC, but it was over in Old Town Alexandria. Now that plant ran, the plant on Benning Road ran on oil. That plant used oil to run the turbines. The plant that was in Old Town Alexandria ran on coal. Okay, we used to bring the coal in a train, dump it in the yard, and feed that generating station with coal. That plant closed down as well. So, and then you had four other plants that served the District of Columbia to serve Pepco's territory, Pepco's service territory, which was the District of Columbia and most of Montgomery and Prince George's County. Those power plants were situated out on the Patuxent River, in Morgantown, north of Prince George's in Montgomery County, but they were kind of sitting up there in the upper suburbs. Now, those plants have since closed. Pepco doesn't own them anymore. Get back to my original question. You got the lights on in your studio. I got the lights on here in my office. Where's this electricity coming from? Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia. All right. That's the part of the grid from which Virginia. It's part of the grid from which we are sourcing our electricity. We do not have any generating stations here in the District of Columbia. We
It's
do
four.
have
It's
some
4%.
solar.
Yeah, DC generates about 4% if based on the last data I was able to
Yeah,
get
right.
it from the physical confines of the district. And
Mm-hmm.
Maryland is about 40% for a
Yeah,
state.
right.
So
We
we
do
buy.
have we do have some solar here. We have solar here in the city,
Oh,
and
no
that's the
question.
4% or so that you're talking about. Solar does help us incredibly in the middle of the day like this. But remember, the sun's going to set a little bit after 8 o'clock tonight, and all that solar that we were getting all of a sudden will go away. It won't come back until tomorrow morning. So again, electricity being a 24/7, 365 endeavor, we've got to get it from somewhere, and the solar that we have here isn't enough even to supply us, in the middle of the day. So we are drawing the electricity from our surrounding states. This is part of the process that PJM oversees, and to make sure that we have enough electricity, make sure Maryland has enough electricity because they're importing about 60% of their electricity. And then you have states that are net exporters like Pennsylvania and Kentucky and West Virginia. You got a lot of power plants out there, and they're selling their excess capacity to us. And what you want to make sure that we're getting that, what we're trying to do, what you want to do, what you hope to do, and what worked well for a quarter of a century or so, starting back in '99 when we agreed that Pepco would get rid of its generating assets and we would buy this electricity on the open market, is that those prices were fair and reasonable. And up until about 2 years ago, I think one could say that the prices were fair and reasonable, but you can't make that argument today. The prices that you talked about, even including the price cap, are extremely expensive for our customers here. And this is, I believe, something that you want to address over the course of this television show as to what has happened that has all of a sudden dramatically spiked these prices and what have been some of the policies, as you were alluding to earlier, that have led to us being in a situation where we went from the supply of generation exceeding demand by a good bit, and now we're in a situation where supply and demand are extremely tight and prices are skyrocketing and hurting our customers. And so, happy to have this discussion, and I know it's a very, very difficult topic because our residents are getting bills like they've never seen before, and they want to understand what happened here, who did this. I want to say up front, there are three major components to your electric bill. It's the cost of generation, the cost of transmission, which is getting that electricity from the generating stations that we talked about in Pennsylvania and Kentucky and West Virginia, over transmission lines. So it's got to come over lines. We don't have wireless electricity yet, like we have wireless phone service. And then the distribution of that electricity within the city. You see the wires that are above ground and the utility poles, and a lot of it runs underground as well. But the Public Service Commission, where I work, only regulates the cost of the distribution of the electricity once it hits the city. Okay, what Pepco operates here in the city. The rest of the electricity, the cost of the generation and transmission, is what is procured on an open market, what is controlled by PJM. And that really constitutes over 60% of your bill. And that is what you see really skyrocketing in costs. And you talked about the cost earlier. I won't repeat them, but that is what is impacting our customers' bills the most.
Well,
And
Ted,
then in a very, very negative way.
this is what's concerning to me, and this is not something.
And I want to say this. I need to say this up front. This is not uniquely a District of Columbia
Well, that's
situation by
where
any stretch of the imagination. Okay,
Well,
this is
yeah,
going on from North Carolina up to Illinois.
it's
Is
going on.
Route is going on throughout the country. Quite frankly,
It's going on
you know,
nationwide.
yeah, it's
That's
going on
what I'm
nationwide.
saying.
This is
This is a
please don't
nation.
feel like we are sitting in some
No,
situation. Oh my God, what happened to
no,
DC?
no.
No, this is
This
across
is
the
a
country.
nationwide
Yeah.
issue. That is because the PJM has for the last 7 and 8 years had something called a SKU, which they have had renewable energy and different all projects go through that SKU.
Q.
And
Called Q.
all
Called a Q.
it's called a Q.
Yeah.
And it has been closed for 7 to 8 years. Now, back on May 11th, for those who can go to my website here at Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC. Just go to positivechangepc.com. You can click on our news and events tab. You can scroll down and you can see advocates and legislatures ask PJM to stop blocking renewables in the queue.
Right. So let's talk about just help your listeners out for a second. No, no, I want to hold on. I'm gonna get you on. But let me explain what it is. Let me
Okay,
explain what it is. All right. All right. I know you want to explain it. I want to explain
I
it.
know I don't want to explain it. I want you to explain, but I want to drop
Okay.
something else on that.
Okay.
Not only does DC residents face this issue, DC residents in all 13 states face this issue of a data sharing issue where you have had thousands, and not thousands, but millions of folks who have put PV systems already installed on their systems, and the data sharing option on their meters have been deactivated by the utility companies. And this was something that was brought to my attention by a young white guy who's excellent at what he does, named Michael Murray. His organization is called Mission Data, and he has covered this piece And on my website, I have also an article saying Pepco systematically mishandling solar projects, says DC U.S. Attorney, is one article. Then it has advocacy holds Pepco accountable. Pepco systematically dismantling solar projects, says the Journal. And it says fees for Pepco put solar panels out of reach for DC residents. Now, these are all news articles that I went back and I loaded after I spoke with the young a gentleman by the name of Charles Satterfield, who was on your platform the other day
Right.
at when y'all were hosting the forum, because I wanted him to have some historical background to understand how that this was way above all of our pay grades as we begin to look at how the utilities have been able to do certain things which I would say are illegal, but it has to be challenged not by just throwing the blame at the Public Service Commission or the Office of People's Counsel. The U.S. Attorney's Office has to step in with the Office of People's Counsel, and they have to litigate on behalf of the residents, which they have been doing.
Right.
My
Right.
thing is, we don't get anyone talking about those issues. So I want to put that also on you, Ted, to
Okay.
sort
Okay.
of
So
to tie this
two
together.
yeah, right. Two very different issues. Let me give a little definition around both, and then maybe we can tie them together. Okay. So
Thank you.
let's go back. First, let's go back to the queue. Okay. Let's go back to the queue that PJM controls. So what is this queue? Okay. Think about if you're in a restaurant. All right. You're in a busy restaurant on a Saturday night. The place is full. And the waiters are coming in to the kitchen saying, all right, this is a table of 4 over here, and they want, these 4 different dishes. And then the waiter comes from another side of the restaurant. He comes into the kitchen. Somebody in the kitchen has to manage those tickets as they come in to say, okay, this table of 4 is going to get chicken, steak, fish, and a soup. Okay. And then put that into the order in which it will be made by the chef or the people who are working in the kitchen. All right. And so somebody's got to manage all of that in a real big restaurant. You don't have all of those things given directly to the chef to say, hey, chef, start cooking. Somebody manages, okay, we're going to start cooking the chicken over here and start cooking the steak over here. And you're managing that because you're getting a number of, so if you were thinking about this in terms of 13 states and the District of Columbia, all of these new generating projects that are going to come online have to come on in a way that says, okay, we have enough transmission lines to support them, and we know how to get the power that's coming from them to where it needs to be, because you have to take power and use it immediately. Power does not store anywhere. You can't store it. So you got to make sure that you got the lines all set up for these new generating facilities to come online. If you could imagine a real busy restaurant on a Saturday night, and all of a sudden that guy who was taking the tickets in the kitchen saying, wait a minute, we're overloaded. The kitchen is backed up. Stop bringing your tickets in here for a half an hour. Basically, PJM did that for a few years.
They did it for 8 years.
Okay, we're overloaded. You got to slow the intake down now. We got to level set and regroup. Okay.
Well,
what you have at the same time is load is still increasing. Okay, state by state. Either people new residents moving into states increasing load.
Let's talk about the
buildings being built, data centers being built. All of the above. All of the above increases load. And if you talk about, okay, if you get a few hundred residents, few thousand residents moving in, that's one thing. But a data center eats as much load as an entire ward in the city. Okay,
well,
that's how big they are. That's how big they are. This isn't like us building an apartment building. and taking up a city block. This is us taking up an entire ward's worth of electricity generation.
Well, let
And
me step right in
you get these
and
data centers
yeah,
breeding
yeah,
faster than rabbits,
yeah. Well, let me
and
share this
so,
with
you know,
with our listening audience here now, Ted. Now, see, this is important because see, the PJM has more data centers operational in the 13 states in the District of Columbia than any other region in the United States of America.
now,
Okay?
hold on, but make sure you understand, make sure your listeners understand. PJM does not control the data centers coming online. Okay,
Well, no, but they
that's
do. They
but
they do.
they have
They,
to make sure they've got enough supply to deal with.
yeah. Well,
Okay,
see, but my issue with them would then let them pay for it. See, that's the problem
well,
I'm
see,
looking at. I'm
so
looking at nine.
it gets real complex, right? It gets real
Now
complex because
I'm looking at
you know
63% of the 14.7 billion because the data center accounted for 63% of the total price rise in 25-26 delivery year. The
right.
delivery year capacity cost consumers capped was, we talked about it,
Mhm, mhm.
$329.17. Now, there the PJM has had to try, under pressure, has had to try to reorganize. So they've come up with this thing called first ready, first served model. Because the
Right.
queue's
Okay. Okay.
been
So
okay.
here,
Let
let's
811.
talk about that. Let's
Yeah,
talk
let's
about that.
talk
Okay.
about. But
All
let's
right.
talk
Okay.
about what's in the
That first
queue.
ready first, because what used
Eight.
to happen, several round, what used to happen was people would put their project into the queue. All right. People would put their project into the queue. Well, I don't, my project might not be ready to, it might not be shovel ready right now, but I'm applying in advance because I know the queue is going to take me 2, 3 years to get through. Okay. So I'm applying up front while I'm still getting my financing in the back, while I'm still getting my land lease straightened out, while I'm still getting my contractor straightened out to build this generated facility. And then what happens? PJM looks up after they've taken 3 years to move you through the queue, and you're like, well, I decided not to build that generating station. Or the tax incentives that I thought that I could get to build the generating
It's
station
gone.
went away. Or
It's,
the permit that I thought that I could get to build my wind turbines got put in the recycling bin. Policy at the federal government level has changed. And so now I'm not going to build. So all of a sudden, PJM is sitting in on this big queue of projects that aren't going to be built.
but Ted,
So they changed their intake
Ted,
process to say, look, we're going to deal first with
yeah,
what's ready to be built
yeah. Well, see,
versus what y'all think you're going to build.
see,
Okay.
this is the problem I'm having, Ted, with this conversation. Now,
I hope it's not
on
with me.
not it's I'm basically repeating what one of the state senators said in her testimony statement at the press conference back on May 11th. The queue was closed the entire 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration. Billions of dollars in federal tax credits were available to help those developers develop those projects. But because the wind, solar, and battery storage projects, 92% of them were the ones that were pushed back to the back of the queue.
Mhm.
The fossil fuel and gas projects were put to the front of the queue. So I don't know who was ready or who had the financing, but they have 811 projects now that are in the queue. These are brand new projects, and
Yep.
everything had to be in place for them to get into the what they call first come first serve
Right.
position
So
with
I think that you
just
will get
20%. Yeah, I want to
you
give this number. Just 10% of
mhm.
those projects were allowed to be built out. There's already been a study to show it would save $3.5 billion in capacity cost pass-throughs to ratepayers. If the entire 811 projects were built, it would generate 220 gigawatts of electricity, enough power roughly for 165 to 220 million homes, average homes across the 13 states in the District of Columbia. So this is not my statement. This is the information I pulled directly from the research that I pulled. So what I'm saying is, based on the data that I was able to pull down preparing for this show, and I look at how these projects, when these projects stall in the PJM connection queue, community solar programs stall to connect to the grid. The backlog limits the supply of available solar generation, causing subscriber organizations to hit a developmental bottleneck, thereby restricting consumers' access, delayed financial savings, hindering state clean energy targets across all 13 states in the District of Columbia, impacting 67 million ratepayers and preventing the district and those 13 states from being able to reach their clean energy goals, which is set forth in their renewable portfolio standard legislation.
Right. So
Could
I
we
don't think,
agree that is that
right,
a fair statement?
Ron, I don't think you will get an argument from North Carolina to Illinois or any state in between that we must fix the interconnection process, this queue that you're talking about. We must come up with a methodology that doesn't take 6 years or more to bring new solar, gas, whatever it is, projects online. You're not going to get an argument. I'm absolutely agreeing with you. This is what I'm working with fellow commissioners all over the country to try to do, because we are in a situation now where you've got a lot more load coming online, these data centers, a lot more load coming online faster than we can get supply online. And we've got to turn that around. We've got to bring able to bring supply on faster. We've got to bring able to bring green energy on more abundantly. You're not going to get an argument from me at all around that. I think everybody knows we have a process over at PJM that was broken. They are trying to fix it. And I think you still see everyone from governors to the White House, quite frankly, writing letters to PJM saying this has got to be fixed. This has got to be changed. You're not going to get an argument here. You're pointing out something that's extremely important and that is costing our ratepayers millions and millions of dollars. Millions and millions of dollars. And yes, it is a bad problem in desperate need of fixing.
Well, see, this is why I wanted you on, Ted, because see, I call the District of Columbia a test tube baby. Whatever comes out of DC,
Mhm.
you can see if that pilot comes out of the district. I've been living around here about 60 years watching pilot programs come right out of this town, and people and folks who look like
Yep,
me and you came up with these programs would never got credit. That's why I'm
that's
gonna
right.
give you Mark Davis and Daryl Green, y'all prophets, brother, because like I said, I saw somebody do a documentary on the Solar for All program as though they were the originators, but that's a whole nother
Listen,
story. I won't get into that, Ted. But what I want to stay focused on with our people understanding the meantime, while all of these other things are going on, we've had the problems from the same companies, the Pepcos of
oh,
this world. How do
no,
you
no,
go?
I forgot to answer the second part of your question. Now, thank you for reminding me. Okay, I'm not going to get away with that. So here we are. Let's talk about local interconnection. This is not a PJM issue. This is a Pepco issue. This is
No,
when you customer in the District of Columbia go to put a solar system on your house, or when a solar developer is going to put a larger community solar system, on top of a roof of an apartment building or a parking garage or a warehouse or anything like that. What is the time, cost, process by which all of that work gets done. And it's a good news, bad news story. On the residential level, it's actually working pretty well. And we've adopted new rules here at the Public Service Commission to make what we think is an even fairer process in terms of a fee that is not exorbitant at all. Everybody pays the same fee. And so it's a one-time fee. You get your solar system connected on your house. Where it gets much trickier and much more complex is in these very large systems. There are, if you just put a solar system on your house, I don't need to upgrade the transformer down the street to accommodate the solar system on your house. But when you're putting some of these very large community solar systems on warehouses and big roofs and things like that, there are upgrades that Pepco needs to do to its distribution system in order to accommodate the output from those solar systems. There are equipment that Pepco might need to put on the solar system to calibrate and regulate how much output is coming off of those systems at a given time. There are costs associated with each one of those measures. And understanding those costs up front is of critical concern to the solar developers, because it'd be like me and you. If we went to buy a car, I need to know up front how much the car costs, so that when I go to the bank to borrow my money, I'm going to the bank to say, okay, I need $30,000 for this car. I can't go to the bank and say, okay, I need $30,000, then go over to the dealership and the dealer says, oh, well, sir, you wanted the 20-inch tires instead of the 19-inch tires, and you wanted the Uber leather interior instead of the cloth interior. So now the cost of your car is $40,000 instead of 30, but you only got $30,000 worth of bank financing. And now this is what has been happening to our solar installers. They go in and they think the price is one thing, and then they get 3/4 of the way through the project, and Pepco is coming back and saying, "Oh no, but we had to put a transformer in over here, and we had to upgrade some wires over there, and we had to put some telemetry equipment in over here." And all of a sudden, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional
Well,
cost that you didn't originally anticipate,
well,
and that
Ted.
hasn't been built into your financial structure.
Yeah, well, was that what was going on back in February of 2022? Because I have an article here in the Washington Post.
It's been going on more recently
Al,
than that.
yeah,
It's
Alex
probably going on then, but yeah,
Hilber set outside their Northwest home. Now, this is right up behind Howard University. They wanted to get a solar panels on their home, but says nearly $20,000 in fees from Pepco to upgrade the neighborhood electric
the
distribution.
transfer. So let me tell you what that one was. Okay.
Okay,
And
that's what my
here we
question
get into
is.
something. Here we get into something called, it's called the but-for argument. Hear me out. Let's say you're the first or second person to put a solar system on your roof let's say you got 12, 14 homes in a block. Probably got 2 transformers in that block. And let's say one of your neighbors puts solar on his house. So you got one house on the block with solar. Let's say second neighbor puts solar on their house. At some point, when you get to maybe the 5th or the 8th person putting solar on the house, the transformer that's on that block has got to be upgraded. The
Okay,
transformer cost about $20,000.
okay.
And that now, so the rule would have been, let's say you're number 8 in line to get solar on your block, and then Pepco says, well, we wouldn't have had to upgrade this transformer, but for you putting this 8th system on the block that has now caused for the need to upgrade the transformer. That's called the but-for argument. So but for you bringing this last piece of additional capacity on, we wouldn't have had to upgrade our equipment. But now we've got to spend $20,000 to put a new higher voltage transformer on the block.
I gotta
That
step in. I gotta
now,
step
now,
in.
now, there's an
Go
argument.
ahead, but I
There's
gotta
an
step
argument that
in.
says that there's an argument that says that the Pepco uses the but for argument. They said, but for you bringing this additional need and we wouldn't have had to upgrade our system. There's another argument that says you're putting in solar for the benefit not only of that individual resident, but for the benefit of the entirety of our community. You're cutting greenhouse gas emissions. This is something that is good, that we're doing local generation here instead of relying on Pennsylvania and Kentucky to bring in all of this electricity, then we should socialize the cost of that transformer amongst the rate base. Okay. And so everybody in the rate base pays, you know, it would be fractions of a penny, quite frankly. You spread that out over the rate base. That's the counter to that argument. Okay. And so, you know, these are some of the issues that we're having to wrestle with. We didn't have this proliferation of solar, which is a good thing. Didn't have it earlier, and you didn't have these, you know, these upgrades of transformers. But now you see we're starting to run into that in certain areas.
See,
certain lines. It's a good problem to have in a way, because it means that solar adoption is getting wider and wider, and more people are locally generating and saving money on electric bills. It's a good problem to have in a way, but you do need to have an electric distribution system that can support the two-way flow of electricity and that much electricity. So you have to upgrade some of the wiring in some of the neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, this is where what my thoughts are, so I can share it with my listening audience here that comes to this platform, because I think we sort of deal in things from a different perspective to sort of help people understand. Now, what I'm saying right now, several years back, our government put up, I think it was almost $5.7 billion for smart meters. They gave that money to the utility companies to install smart meters, rather than the utility companies just putting the meters in free of charge. They cut it half, the price in half. What they did with the rest of the money, I don't know, but I know that those meters got installed in the District of Columbia. They put in these meters. Nobody said that the money,
Ron, I was really happy because I happened to be able to train a good number of DC residents to actually do that installation work.
Okay,
I'm
aware.
It worked for a long time.
I'm aware of that. Now, my issue with this is the fact
because
that
Pepco all in themselves, they contracted that work out,
yeah,
which was a good thing. So it
yeah,
created jobs in the community.
yeah, I understand what they did. I also understand, for people say with community solar, that I'm looking at the article as we speak, how Pepco went out and installed these meters at sites that, in fact, was the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. bought this claim, and it was, and at that time,
as you may know,
was
we
that
issued
solved?
an order. You know, we issued an order, got to be a couple of years ago now, that required Pepco to remove those meters at no cost to the customer and allow the customers to install revenue grade meters on their own, which is what the law allows.
I'm
So
talking
we had
about
Pepco.
yeah, I'm talking about community solar now. I'm not
That's what
talking
I'm talking
about.
about. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
that's
talking
what I'm
about the
talking about.
community
Yeah,
solar,
exactly,
and
exactly. We're
see
talking about the same thing.
okay,
Yeah.
and this
Now,
and this,
there was also a dispute around that. Some of the Pepco meters, some of the community solar projects had a Pepco meter on them, and then they had the revenue grade meter that was put on by the solar installer. And it would shock you that the meters weren't reading the same amount every month, even on the same project. So we had to have an audit done and make sure that the subscribers to those community solar projects receive the appropriate credits from the installations. So there was a refund that was given to the subscribers because it was realized that Pepco hadn't given out the requisite amount of credits, because of some of the discrepancies in the meters. But yes, we've straightened that out mostly.
Well,
mostly. But yeah, that took a while. Did take a minute. But again, we had all the Pepco meters removed, and we had the revenue grade meters installed by the installers of the solar systems.
well, this is the issue I'm having because I'm a energy and I'm gonna disclose it. I'm a energy advisor with Think Energy, so we advocate for people to sign up for community solar in 13 states and the District of Columbia. The problem I have is a great program. Problem I have is when I got to tell somebody, and they don't really want to tell folk, but when they say, well, you got to they got to go on a waiting list. I said, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. How long do people have to be on this waiting list before they see some benefit from the subscription solar program? Because to me, if I'm going to tell somebody that they're going to sign up to a program that's free, it doesn't cost them anything to sign up. It's supposed to guarantee them from 10 to 20% savings on their electricity bill. You're telling them that they can lock their rate in for 20 years with this program. And if they want to get out of it at any time they can with no cost to them. Sounds great. But if I got to be on a waiting list, and I'm going to use the Maryland and DC for the example. Right. In the state of Maryland, the community solar program actually started in 2017. Their pilot in 2020, January 1 of 2025, they transitioned from a pilot program to a full-blown permanent program in the state of Maryland. During the 8 years that they had the pilot going, the Public Service Commission of Maryland approved 40 solar subscription companies to enroll subscribers in the program. The program actually had a cap of 30,000 while it was in the pilot stage. When it went public, the cap was taken off and the capacity is around 300,000 now for the state of Maryland. Now, in the district, looking at the renewable portfolio standard legislation, going back to the original legislation, I think they started around 2012, but there was never a cap based on the information I've been able to research preparing for this show, put on the Solar for All program in the district. And I know when that litigation was bought by the Attorney General's office, you had around 6,800 people that they were talking about that were a part of the community solar program that came through DOE EE. Now
right.
it's over
I think
11.
it's closer to 10. Yeah, it's about 10, 11,000. Right.
It's over 11,000 now.
Right.
And that
at the rate. Yeah, at the rate at which we were building community solar projects back when I was with the DCSEU, we could bring on about an additional 2,000 families a year.
Okay. So, well, see, that's what I'm saying. That's a good thing.
And absolutely.
And see, that's what I'm trying to say to people is we need to be able to at least let people know, especially our folk. Because see, here in Maryland, Governor Westmore, I think is
my concern, Ron, is that I don't think the city has the funding to support solar the way we were able to build it up until about 3 years ago, 3 years ago.
Well, see, this is the problem I'm having. This is the problem I'm having.
The federal government has eliminated the investment tax credits.
Yeah, I understand.
And a lot of the city government's money,
Yeah, well, see, this is what I'm trying to say
as well.
Ted, could you explain this to me so I can make it clear to my listeners? In 2016, Mayor Bowles has signed the 50% renewable portfolio standard legislation. Okay. 2017, I think, was the first full year that they had the actual renewable portfolio standard legislation in place. And it said in that legislation that Pepco had to buy these credits from their customer base. Okay.
Right.
I'll never forget Mrs. Sandra Fry's testimony in front of the council. Pepco can't buy what Pepco can't get. That stuck with me. And I learned exactly what she was saying, because when Pepco can't buy those credits from their customer base, then they're fine.
Yes.
And there was a shortfall of some $15 million for fiscal year 2017. In 2018, somebody got the great idea, let's run back to the mayor and the council and move from 50% renewable portfolio standard goal to 100%. I don't know whether it was 2035
32.
32. I think
2032.
it, I think
Yeah.
it, yeah, they didn't move the date. I was getting ready to say 2032. Now, what I'm looking at here, Ted, is the fact that in 2018, that $15 million shortfall fall ballooned to about 25 million as a shortfall. Pepco paid it, but they're able to pass it through to the ratepayers
Right.
each year. So how can that be addressed? Because there's no way, if we have these, don't have the fundings to fund DCSEU to pay the contractors to install the systems, because it also impacts on the battery storage program for folks who have installed PV systems in the district. Because if you're going to ever go to a virtual power plant program, you're going to need not just people with PV systems on their roof, but they need this battery storage with that system, so that those virtual power plants can be generated from those home suppliers of homes who have PV systems already on their roofs. So how do we sort of navigate that, Ted? I don't want to put it all on you, but I'm just
Uh,
trying to say, can you
Wait a minute,
explain?
Ron, how long is the show?
This show is going to be over in about 2 more minutes, but I want to put you to answer that question before you get off the air. The show over. We got to start. We got to start a little later, but I want to
Okay.
put that. Then I'm gonna end this show because I want to thank you for your time. Because I didn't even take a break, bro. Because you've been giving us some valuable information. I've been begging to get you on to explain to folks.
Ron, let me explain this at a high level. So what you talked about is a shortfall back in 2018. Every year, the Public Service Commission has to make a report to the council about how much we're paid, to support this program. The number from last year would make $18 million, 18 or $50 million look pretty good. It's much larger than that now.
Oh my God.
As you said, that money then goes back and is reflected in rates to customers. What we are realizing is that this has become one of the most rapidly growing segments of the utility bill. And I think that I'll put in a shameless plug for a conversation that we're going to have tomorrow here at the Public Service Commission, where we will be bringing in leaders from PJM, from Pepco, from all over the city, from the environmental people, the Sierra Club, solar developers. And this is one of the issues that is clearly going to be discussed, because our renewable energy mandates was pointed out by Sandra Madavu Fry, by the Sierra Club, by the DC Climate Action Group, and others, as potentially being an extremely expensive proposition as we moved forward. And their words are proving to be true. And so I'm not suggesting changes to the program, but I am saying we need to go in eyes open to say, yeah, if this is how we're going to support the continued build out of our solar capacity here, we need to understand the cost that our ratepayers are bearing, to support these endeavors. And so I thank you for having me on here today. I hope you can come and participate in our conversation tomorrow, or that your listeners can tune in. It will be televised,
Yeah,
starting at
I may
11
have to
o'clock here.
catch. Yeah, I may have to check it out virtually. I've already
Yeah.
loaded the information and I'm gonna plug it again before I go off the air, that my listeners and our folks
Mhm.
that come on this show, they need to be trying to at least log on to it and listen to it virtually if they
Yeah,
cannot get down to the Public Service Commission, because
right.
325 G Street, bro, y'all got some rough parking down there. If you ain't
Oh yeah,
on the train,
we are a half a block from Metro Center.
oh,
Just just
yeah,
come on down, take the Metro. You
yeah,
know,
that's what I'm saying. You gotta find somewhere to park your car. Uh, 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 uh,
not if
uh,
you take
uh,
the Metro.
Even if you take the metro,
You're right.
Ted,
You're right.
I
Yep.
have never seen such viciousness with how they are monitoring wards 8, 7, and where the metro lines run. They just, man, they wear you out just trying to park long enough to run down. If you park at the very end and walk to the subway and get on the subway, you still got to take the train down to get down there to you. So I'm just
Mhm.
saying,
Yep.
it's a struggle getting there, but I'm saying it is worth your time. The more people who come forward and they're in the place, that's why I am, as an energy advisor, would think trying to get as many churches and organizations to get the and radio stations to get the word out, to say get people to sign up for the community solar program, because I think it's a great program, but
It
at
is.
least it
It
will
is.
give some type of protections to folk who just can't afford to put a PV system on their roof.
Yeah. Yeah. It is the most immediate protection you can get in the most meaningful way you can cut your electric bill quickly.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely.
so with that being said, Ted, I want to thank you, my brother. I've been
Thank
after
you.
you for I've been after you for a minute to do this, because I knew that this would be a great exchange, because
Mhm.
I had to throw some fastballs and some hard balls across that plate, because I brought you to the stadium, bro. But
All right.
I got to
It's
drop it
all
like it
right.
is, because
Uh-huh.
these are things that I get calls on every day, just like, what do I do about this? I said, well, look, you have to go to the Public Service Commission and the Office of the People's Counsel and the Office of DOEE and DCSEU's
Mhm.
websites and try to stay abreast on what is available to you, because this thing is first come, first serve. And that was the thing I was
Yeah.
trying to make about the situation here in Maryland. Governor Westmore signed a Brighter Futures Act in 2024. They opened the program in July 1st of 2025. Wasn't due to sunset for people could still make application. It was $12 million put in the program to provide $7,500 grants. The program time was 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 on Earth Day, April 21st. The head of the Department of Energy in Maryland, she said, we just closed the solar access program. We've committed out the whole 12 million. The issue is, who knew?
Yeah.
And how many of our people knew to apply? Because we're not having these conversations in our communities about these programs, these initiatives, and these incentives. And these programs are open. The minute that they're open, folks don't look like me and you. They're on top of it, and we look out. We 30, 100, 1,000 at the, and we just finding out that we can sign up for it. So
Yep. Yep. As they
it's
say, information is power.
and this
You
first
know.
come first serve
Yep.
is something that we have to make sure that our black media, especially the Pacificas and the WPFWs and the uh, NPR stations, they got to do a better job about having the Ted Trabues of this world, and the Mrs. Fry or whoever will. Because the other thing I want to do is public acknowledgement for a great career, Mrs. Sandra Fry. I think she's retiring as head of the People's Council,
Yep.
leading that office. She has done
Mhm.
an outstanding job over her career. Me and her husband, we were very, very dear friends. You would never, you met the brother, you saw him in school, in front of the Howard University Business School, selling books every day. You never knew who he was. You never knew that was Mrs. Fry was his wife. And we would always have these discussions about how he was able to help her get through law schools and their journey. So I want to give my kudos to her for her service to the district and DC residents, brother. And I want to thank you for your outstanding advocacy for our folks
Thank you. Thank
of
you.
the
I
District
appreciate it.
of Columbia, brother, because I know I've been in the trenches. I know who's done what and how it got done.
Hmm.
So, like I said, you've been a stalwart in that. With that, Ted, thank you for joining us on the
Thank
platform
you
of
for having me,
Stolen
Rod.
Now.
Anytime. You know that.
All right,
Anytime.
brother. You have a
Don't
blessed
act
day.
like I'm hard to find. You know where I've been living
All right, brother.
for
All
years and
right,
years.
brother.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
my brother. Thank you.
All right.
And thank you for joining us on the
Have a good
platform
day.
of Solar
All right.
Now in the future.
Join us tomorrow for our forum. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna be online if I can't get there. I'm gonna be there one way or the other. I'd like to put my head in the room, man, but my wife, she's been sick for a minute, and I'm
I'm
working from
sorry.
home. That's why
Yeah.
I'm always working from home or trying to be close to home. If I don't have
Hmm.
anyone to be here, then I'm here. So
I totally understand. Yep.
it is what it is. All right,
Yep.
my brother. You have a blessed
Thank
day.
you. You
Bye
too.
bye.
You too. Appreciate it. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Mm-hmm. All right. Chad, you can go ahead and you can end your call. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I am still here for a minute because I have a few things that I need to say and get out. As many of you can see, I have a sign in the back here with a sign for Brother Antoine Thompson, who is running for the 25th congressional district here in on here in Maryland. And I am a supporter, of course, of Brother Thompson and a member of the Greater Washington Clean Cities Collaboration Group. Of all of the candidates, that any of them are welcome to come on this platform and we will give them equal time. But I don't know anyone who's done as much work around the renewable energy industry and advocating for uh, an African American community than the work that Antoine Thompson and the Greater Washington Clean Cities Collaboration Group has done around EV charging infrastructure and alternative fuels and bringing resources to our community. So, with that being said, that's one thing. The other thing is this show is brought to you every week by the Positive Change Purchasing Online Digital Radio TV Network, which you can get more information by logging on to our website at positivechangepc.com. I'm your host, Ronald Bethea, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the slogan for this show, if there's power in numbers, then the Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC captures that power for your financial benefit. The Positive Change Purchasing Cooperative LLC serves as an economic blueprint for renewable energy companies, both large and small, along with increasing market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to increase the market share for African and African American owned renewable energy companies to address the high energy costs at our historically Black colleges and universities, to utilize Black colleges and universities campuses to develop capacity and initiatives for renewable energy projects to bring down the underemployment for young African and African American men and women locally, nationally, and throughout the diaspora. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I am today donning a shirt, which I'm going to turn down so you can get a good look at it. This shirt says Greenwood Avenue Gallery. This is a shirt that came from Tulsa, Oklahoma. My daughter was fortunate enough to go out to Tulsa a couple of years ago, and she developed a candle which I have here in my office, which I'm going to share with you, my listening audience, around that historical event. This is the actual piece here that she developed, and it's a candle in the memory of Black Wall Street in Greenwood, 1921, limited edition. She did this several years back, and this was one of the things that she went out to share with folks out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, many of you, as I said, understand that riot took place on June 1st and went for 3 days. The reason why I'm bringing these things up, ladies and gentlemen, is because we need to know what we've been through to know where we're going. And unfortunately, a lot of our people think that what we're going through today is uncharted waters. No, we're back into the Reconstruction era of the 1800s. That's what we're living under in 2026. So whether you like my analysis of this or not, I was able to hear a gentleman by the name of Al-Shul Shabazz. We knew him as Malcolm X, speak in a video recording back in the day in the early 70s when I was in school. I finished Morgan State back in 1973. And that speech was entitled "The Ballad or the Bullet" from Riverside, California. And it's very, very relevant to where we are today. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the close of another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. And let me slide the sign over a little more. So you can see that's Antoine Thompson. And like I said, he's running for the 25th Congressional District here in Prince George's County. So we're going to give him his plug today. With that being said, we don't want you to meet us here. We want you to beat us back here as we close another exciting edition of Solar Now and the Future with its economic impact on Black America. So until next week, we say go in peace.